I want to introduce now metadata and the role of it, apart from the fact that it is incredibly important, because when we talk about data, and all metadata is the description of that data. You say, well, okay, well, I get that, maybe. What is this description? Well, it's anything about that data that's important about that data. So the only way of communicating a concept on a data is to attach, if you like, the concept, that meaning of what that data is, to that specific data element. And when the data itself, a string, has got attached to it its metadata, which involves its meaning, and if you like, a payload of information about that piece of data, suddenly it becomes very rich, high quality data. You know, there's a lot, we're certainly seeing that the metadata management, the creation of metadata, the management of metadata, and creation being a very important part, because what is a bit of marked up text into a database? It's metadata. It's been some human has gone through and found that particular part of a particular report, keyed that data out, and actually keyed it into a system, and now that becomes data. So metadata is all about describing various facets of an information asset to improve its usability. And it goes well beyond the idea of, you know, what you might call simple metadata, which everyone can, you know, technical facets. In fact, it goes, you know, so far it goes this far. If we're not in the metadata world, or you're not a, you know, and you're not thing, you know, where does metadata come from? Mainly manual user input. Think about your, I don't know, if you've got SharePoint in your app, you're using SharePoint, you've got to put some keywords in. Using content management system, you're asked for some keywords. If you're asked to put in more than 10 bits of metadata about what that document's about, you get bored. But actually, it's very important, because without it, the systems don't work. The system provides a lot of metadata. The system will say what the name of the user was who put that document up, or who was the user who last changed the data, or whatever. So all of that metadata comes from the system. And the last part, which is the bit that becomes really helpful, is and the last point, this is a lovely thing about virtual systems. Apologies for the phone. The last thing about that is information extraction. Actually being able to do that automatically is hugely advantageous. And then we think about the different types of metadata. There's information about data, stuff that's, you know, system doubling core like stuff, if you like. It's fun, it's important, but it's very basic, and it's got very little value beyond its core requirements. You know, what's the system, what are the dates, who was the creator, what was the source. When you start moving into semantic metadata, we're describing the meaning of that data. And I do make a distinction between semantic metadata, where we might have things like topics, or product, or geography, or audience, you know. We have semantic data, and then we have active metadata. And the active metadata is fundamentally, you know, fast-moving data. And we could, if someone wants to ask me about that in more detail, I just haven't got enough time to go through it. But active metadata is what makes data management processes intelligent and dynamic for integrated use, because things like status, things like markers, things like facts, they change. Quite change in a nanosecond if it's a fast-moving process. And so the status of a process, its metadata changes actively.